I don't know if you guys noticed, but next to Taylor Steele's name there, our own Enoch Harris is a producer on that film. So, Ben, do you think we could, what are the odds, the over-under, that we could get that film in next year? I think it's pretty high. Hope you guys enjoyed the block. We're going to bring up a couple filmmakers right now. Isaac, are you still here? Isaac Zoller? Isaac? Anywhere? No? Kat Reynolds, are you here? Let's bring Kat Reynolds. Canto Del Mar, beautiful film. Round of applause for that, please. I'll grab the mics here. And Chad Nelsen. Are you here, Chad? We've Chad Nelsen, CEO. Hi there. CEO of Surfrider, and just all-around amazing warrior of an individual. Round of applause for Chad Nelsen. Always fighting the good fight and doing it in such a...
Is this thing on?
Yeah. Hop up. So did we lose Isaac? He was here earlier. Son of a gun. I just took a trip with him to Alaska. I was going to give him a lot of grief, but not going to happen, I guess. So let's start with Canto Del Mar, because and it kind of relates back to we've had so many discussions about trying to kind of incite that connection with people to have purpose, and you did such a beautiful job and continue to do so with these vignettes, finding that hook. So maybe talk about how trying to engage people and doing it in a way, we were talking about this yesterday, of not being overly pious, not being heavy-handed. You're trying to incite a reaction, and what that process is for you.
Yeah, I think for me it was just, it was a really beautiful opportunity for me to learn as a storyteller, to come to a concept that I had in mind of a story that I wanted to tell that I thought was there, and really realizing that I'm a conduit for somebody else's story, and allowing that to evolve in front of me, and making sure that that was an accurate representation of that individual's story, and recognizing the through lines in that process of all the things that really connect us. And one of the lines that you heard in there was, one ocean touches all shores. I run a nonprofit with my partner Mario, who's one of the characters in the film. He's sitting back there.
Yeah, a filmmaker himself. Yeah. I want to point out, by the way, I didn't know he was double heading here. One is talent. So well done.
He's
well done,
famous
sir.
now. It's official.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that really translated through the whole film, and really realizing that it was just a reflection of all these individuals in the water, and really allowing the ocean to be the mirror for all of those individuals, and stepping back and really allowing myself to watch what that reflection looked like. I think that answers your question.
Well, yeah. More importantly, how do you find the stories? I think it's one thing, as we're viewing the film. It's like, oh, finished product looks great. I'm sure there's just a ton of footwork and pre-production that goes into sniffing out the great stories, right?
Months and months and months
yeah.
and months and months and months of pre-production. I was contracted by Hispanic Access Foundation, and so grateful that project came to the table for me. They had two people in mind that they wanted to be a part of the story, and that was David Riera, who was the marine biologist in the introduction, and his story was really interviews on interviews on interviews, really learning what the individual was like and how that story was going to unfold on camera. And it was really about no matter where you were in the United States, how we have a connection to the ocean, whether that's through the food we eat with David, for example, if it's agriculture, how do we create that connection wherever we are, if we're inner city individuals, or if we live on the coast, what does that relationship look like? And then there's a priest who traveled across from the Dominican Republic, and another individual who's an immigrant, and how the ocean really represented this feeling of hope. You look to the horizon, what's on the other side of the ocean? And so the ocean means something different for so much of us. And then there's Morgan, who's the spearfisher and free diver, and she just has such a simple, beautiful life in Hawaii, and it was really beautiful to watch her journey unfold on camera too. She really didn't have much of a connection to her Latino culture until we really started filming, and now she is really deeply integrated and messages me every day, asking for inspiration of what songs to listen to help learn her Spanish a little bit more. And then Mario, we've been on this journey together to really educate the next generation, and pass on our experience of the ocean to that generation. So just understanding that every individual has a different relationship to the ocean, and it's this beautiful, vast resource that connects us all.
Yeah, I mean, we all love films, but even more so when they have a purpose and there's a mindfulness there. I'm a sucker for anything, a good metaphor and good parallel, and I love Dominican Republic, with the whales traveling the same distance. So that being said, I know you're doing it in the forms of films. Chad, you've been doing it with Surfrider in a variety of ways. He is the oracle of all things, like when it comes to environment. I mean, there's so many things we can dive into. I always ask for like an update, like what's the latest, with Surfrider, but also with trying to keep people engaged. We just had the recent oil spill, and people are really involved, and then that tends to wane. So how do you approach it to engage people, but to maintain that engagement?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question because a lot of people. First of all, if you look out at the ocean, typically it looks healthy because it's nice and blue on top, no matter what's happening underneath. So it's sometimes hard to convey what the impacts are. And a lot of people go to the ocean to get away from all those things in life. You heard that in these stories. To think about the fact that it's suffering and we need to take action. Can be challenging at times to do that. I think the people that you saw in these films are so connected to the ocean, feel so much passion for it. People here, I'm sure, feel the same way. So we try to tap into that love and all those things that the ocean gives us, and use that to remind people that they should be reciprocating that and trying to give that back. But it's really interesting when we have something like this oil spill happen, because I think as humans, unfortunately, we're a pretty reactive society. We retrofit buildings after the earthquake, not before,
Well, it's a NIMBY approach too. That not in my backyard. Whoa, it's coming to Laguna.
Yeah. So we had this oil spill. 25,000 gallons up in Huntington. There's been tar balls washing down onto beaches all the way down to San Diego, and it was amazing how many people. Well, first of all, how many people called and said, "Hey, I want to help." So that was awesome to see. We collected like 10,000 volunteer names in a week. That would take us usually years. So that was good in a sense. And a lot of people also said, because we've been fighting offshore drilling for the last 4 or 5 years, because the Trump administration wanted to open up all coasts of the U.S. to drilling. And we were able to stop that, which was good. But I got a lot of phone calls that said, "Oh, this is what you meant." So there's something when it's real and tangible and you can see the impacts, that really changes people's minds. So, our job is to take a crisis and an unfortunate situation and try to find ways to use that as a catalyst for action.
How about controlling the narrative? I think, one of the other films that I watched, I think it was Plastic, about, I never even thought about my Javianas, like, love the cheap locals, flip-flops that I get in Hawaii, and never thought about it in those terms. I think everyone was sold a bill of goods on the story, the narrative about, say, plastic straws, and then and then there was the Seaspiracy that came out. I know there was a lot of back and forth of.
Don't get me started.
No, well, I think people need to hear. I mean, I always lean to you. I think you really take a pragmatic and honest approach, and we're told one thing. I think it's really, really difficult to control a narrative now. The way that information flows and the way people are digesting it.
Yeah, I mean, Seaspiracy, just quick aside, I think it was well-intentioned in some senses, but it's actually the power of storytelling when you just kind of unleash it without necessarily grounding it in truth. That movie was full of errors. So it was really a animal rights movie disguised as an ocean conservation movie. Nothing wrong with animal rights. It's just that there is sustainable fishing, and actually 90% of the U.S. fishing is sustainable. That story about eating our own seafood is actually a change we should be making in America. We import almost all of our seafood, which is unsustainably caught. We export 90% of our seafood that is sustainably caught here in the U.S. So there is a way to live off the ocean if that's something you choose to do in a way that's sustainable.
On the plastic side, though, in Seaspiracy, they talked about, I think it's over 40% of the plastic found in the ocean is fishing nets. Is that accurate?
That is, we spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. We don't really know.
Yeah, it's okay.
There's best guesses that maybe it's 50-50 land, 50% from fishing nets, but there's not actually any really good. There's no question that fishing nets are a big problem in the ocean, unquestionably. There's also no question that all the single-use plastic that we're using every day that's washing down the streams, including our flip-flops, is also a big problem. So I don't think it should be like a contest of like, no, our plastic problem is worse than your plastic problem. We just need to solve the
I
plastic
am not going to
problem.
stop wearing flip-flops, is what I'm saying. But more importantly, in that movie that we watched earlier, is they talk about just the exponential rise of plastic and the petroleum companies seeing what's on the horizon, shifting from oil to plastic production. That's what we're seeing, right?
Yep.
I think that's the most frightening harbinger of any.
Plastic's a fossil fuel. I think by 2050, the amount of plastic we're going to consume is the equivalent of like 860 coal power plants. So we shouldn't be just looking at it as an ocean pollution problem. It's a petroleum problem. And you're right, as we shift to electric cars, which we're doing, the plastic industry the oil and gas industry is looking for new uses, and they're trying to find more ways to turn it into plastic. 'Cause they see that as the future. So, that's the bad news. The good news is that we're starting to chip away at those problems, and we're seeing increasing regulation. That movie kind of called for a banning of single-use plastics. Well, that's happening across the U.S., which is great to see. And we are the #1 producer of single-use plastic in the world. So we need to solve our problem first.
Awesome. You always bring such good news. Wow, Danny Downer. I want to ask you how you came to be just so focused on movies with a message. Was that from the get-go to be a filmmaker, but to be a filmmaker with purpose?
I think so. I've been a photographer for almost, over 10 years now. And for a long time, I've been working in the surf industry as a surf photographer, water photographer. And I stepped away for a while because I had been doing commercial work, and I was living this beautiful life. I was traveling all the time, and poor me. It wasn't fulfilling anymore. Something was missing, and I had this almost algorithmic routine to my work. And I just needed to integrate my passion and my purpose. And I knew that I needed to step away for a while. So I worked for a nonprofit, the Ecology Center. I think you're familiar. Yep. And then when I came back to freelance, I was like, okay, what is this going to look like moving forward? And what's that storytelling going to look like? And ironically, this project, all the stars aligned. I was like, ocean, social justice, environmental justice, climate justice, all the things. And it really felt like such a blessing to have that opportunity and privilege to tell that story. And really shine a light on what it means to have our environmental identity, and recognizing that it's integral that we look through an intersectional lens, especially as we start to recognize that these vulnerable communities are most often affected more as we're getting into the climate effects of lowlands and everywhere around the States and everywhere around the world. But it's really important that we start to honor indigeneity and the messages and wisdom that comes from these communities, and really start to listen more than anything. And storytelling is such a beautiful opportunity for oral tradition. It's history, we're writing it. And so I just wanted to do what I could. This is my opportunity to do that.
And that's what we call a positive pivot in career. Well, no, Chad, lawyer, you can go anywhere. You could be at any practice, but you're not. You're running Surfrider Foundation, and I think that I was funny, watching. You see all those people on the Sea Shepherd, and by the way, if you've ever, they're such a bunch of badasses in the best way. But yeah, engineers, biographers, oceanographers, environmentalists, conservationists, all doing what they could be doing. They could be working for an oil company, or they could be working on the Sea Shepherd. Way cooler to be on the Sea Shepherd. So maybe some advice, Chad. I'm sure you've brought people into the fold with Surfrider, and kind of in the fray of kind of getting people on a path to find a career with cause and effect, or a career with conscience attached to it.
Yeah, I thought one of the cool things about the Sea Shepherd movie was that those two British kids who were these incredible printmakers, they found a way to turn their talents into, sort of a conservation tool. And so I kind of feel and you're doing it through film and storytelling. So I feel like there's a million ways you can give back and contribute, whether it's to the ocean conservation world or to social causes. And, we need MCs. We need, you're volunteering your time over the course of this to get these messages out there. We need artists, we need storytellers, we need scientists, lawyers. we need it all. So I feel like, if you kind of put a Venn diagram and you put a circle about what your skill sets are, you do another circle about the talents you feel like you have, and then another circle with the issues you care about, and you look at the center of those three overlapping circles, that's probably what you should be doing.
And permission to proselytize. I always ask you what's kind of what's on the radar. You guys always approach year to year with focused targets. So where's kind of the laser sights with Surfrider Foundation and what you guys have planned?
Sort of when we look to the future, it's sort of it's really climate change, right? This is the 600-pound gorilla in the room. Sea levels are rising. Our oceans are getting warmer. They're getting more acidic. And so, there's going to be no beaches to clean up on if we don't address sea level rise. And that sea level rise is coming. If we stopped all the carbon in the atmosphere tomorrow, we've sort of set in motion, a couple thousand years of sea level rise. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to adapt to our coastlines across America so we can still have beaches and healthy coastal communities. Because if we kind of wait and for those storms to come or the erosion to occur, we're just going to build seawalls and lose our beaches. So we've got a lot of what we're calling coastal adaptation. We have a lot of planning to do to anticipate what's coming and figure out how to kind of get out of the ocean's way.
So you're planning for the apocalypse. Is that
the apocalypse is coming?
I know. Okay, all right.
You have a choice.
Yeah.
You can either stick your head in the sand.
How do you? I mean, as of late, how do you handle that? Like, it feels like there's also a rising sea of doubters. When you think that information was going to flow better, a cleaner connection to good information, it seems like the sea of disinformation is even becoming a stronger current. So how do you battle that?
I mean, it's true, and we're seeing it with everyone's a sort of vaccine and virus scientist now, which is absurd when there's a lot of people who are really good at that. But I actually think that in the last couple of years, there's been an incredible awakening on the awareness of climate change issues. I mean, we see the crazy heat waves in the Pacific Northwest, the fires, the flooding in the middle of the country. I saw a survey that said 75% of Americans sort of have now experienced some impacts of climate change. So it's terrible that we're already there. But the good news is, I think, with the exception of like a small group that's basically beholden to oil and gas, mansions like a coal baron, the rest of the public overwhelmingly wants us to take action. So, in fact, quick plug at 3 o'clock or right after this outside, I'm going to be talking to two of the athletes at POW, Forrest Shearer and Elena Haidt, a guy from a group called the California Environmental Voter Project, and Lola Harris, part of the Harris Mafia, about climate change issues and politics, because it is an issue that we need to address. And there's people talking about it in Glasgow right now, and they're talking about in DC. So.
And those of you that don't have your acronym converter, Protect Our Winners, POW.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. And I think also Kiss the Ground, have both of you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very powerful film. Show of hands, has anyone seen Kiss the Ground? Yeah, it's an incredible film, and we're going to have a great Q&A following. Did we get yay or nay? Are we in, out, where we're going to be? Okay, well, okay. That's going to come up shortly. You definitely want to see that, and we're going to go right into tonight's festivities. But you guys, Kat, Chad, thank you so much. Yeah, round of applause.